It was a rapid strike which cut like shears across his genitals, but left them hanging from a flap of skin. I'm in Africa, beside the Congo River. I've tracked down Jean-Pierre Mombele, a fisherman with a story to tell. He shows me a macabre souvenir, a scale that he took from the massive Goliath tigerfish that attacked his father. And it sounds like he was a specialist fisherman for tigerfish. He was fishing on his own. He didn't come back one day, and they are known to jump out of the water. They're very, very fast, and they have just got these wickedly sharp teeth. Sometime later, they found the boat, but with nobody in. But there was a fish in the boat. There was a fish with a hook in its mouth, and then when they looked some distance away, his body was there as well. And the thing that's particularly horrifying is it sounds like there were marks on his father's throat. It sounded like he was standing up in the boat, and a freak accident. It sounded like the fish actually jumped out of the water and bit him on the throat. Mombele's story raises a few questions, but this is the second account of a Goliath tigerfish attacking and killing a person. Basically, there's a bit of a frenzy of fishing activity going on. One of the nets got stuck on a rock. And in that situation, you know, the only thing you can do, if you're not going to rip the net, you know, you've got to go down and get it off. So this one fisherman dived in to free the net. However, what happened was that, you know, he didn't come up.
Uma média de 4 horas.
4 horas?
4 horas pela boia com ele.
The net came up, no fish in it, no fisherman. Nothing more was seen until about 4 hours later, when suddenly this huge fish appeared on the surface, and it was thrashing around because the fish was actually itself in trouble, actually choking. The fisherman was actually half inside the mouth of the fish, just the legs of the fisherman sticking out. And what happened then was that the fishermen all went to try and get the fish to net it, and he said, you know, because it was obviously quite tired, it was quite easy, just one net, they got it in and clubbed it to death. They left his body inside the fish and then went to Manaus as fast as possible. Obviously, you know, get it to the police station to make sure that there's no suspicion that it was a case of murder or anything like that. The murderer was identified as a piraiba, the largest species of catfish found here in the Amazon. So that fish could have been about 500 pounds. I mean, we are talking some seriously, seriously big fish here. É peixe desse tamanho. Tem boca mais ou menos...
40 centímetros. 40 centímetros.
The mouth, about 40 centimetres across, so that's a couple of foot across, but he says it, you know, it opens up more, so sort of maybe 2.5 foot. This was a pretty monstrous fish and a pretty horrific end for that particular fisherman. He says there are people disappearing all the time, and you never find a trace of them. You know, you don't find the body, you don't find bones, you don't find anything. Even having heard this horrific story from an eyewitness, someone who was actually there, you know, seeing this monstrous fish with the fisherman's feet just poking out of the mouth, I still find it really hard to believe that there are fish here capable of doing that.
Normally about 100 or 200 people are swimming here.
So definitely people have been put off,
yes,
you think?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. But Jonas wasn't the only victim. In almost the identical place, Katarina and her friend Clara had an encounter that has spooked them out of the water for good.
Just on a normal summer day, and we wanted to swim a little bit and meet friends, so we went to the lake.
Dann warst du wahrscheinlich in der schlechtesten Gruppe. Nee, ich war nicht.
We were swimming in the water, just treading water and talking to each other, and there was something swimming around our legs, but we couldn't really define it. I think it was like a snake in the water. Then suddenly there was something on my leg. Then there was a wound on my leg, there was blood. There were 2 parts, that part here and the other one on the other side. I went to a hospital with my mother. They reacted really shocked, the doctors, because they've never seen anything like that before.
And there were other attacks, the same pattern each time. Swimmers bitten on their legs, sent terrified out of the water, bleeding.
มันมีจมูกเชือกร้อยจมูกผูกมันขึ้นมา
What happened? The stingray came to the side of the river and then wouldn't come any further, actually basically got buried in the mud. So what he had to do was actually get in the water, and it was about chest deep, and then completely go underwater with a rope, feed the rope through the spiracles, the water intake of the stingray, not the rope. He'd managed to pull it off the bottom, and it was actually as it rose in the water that he then felt this pain. The wound was actually just numb to start with. And then just this incredible pain, and in fact so painful that he collapsed from the intensity of the pain and actually had to crawl the remaining distance to the house. This was something that wasn't going to go away on its own. It did need urgent medical treatment. As he races for help, Pung San continues to bleed heavily and almost passes out with pain. With no antidote available, his chances of survival are anyone's guess. By the time he arrives for treatment, his condition is deteriorating fast. What happens at the medical centre?
ล้างแผลแล้วก็ฉีดยาชาให้แต่แล้วก็
His heart rate spikes alarmingly, and despite anaesthetic, he remains doubled up in agony. The wound, in fact, is no more than a glancing blow, and yet the pain proves so intense that Pung San is unable to work for the next 4 weeks. He still has the very barb that impaled him. Can I have a look at that? Right. Well, seeing that really does concentrate the mind. Absolutely vicious point on that, and these horrible barbs down the side. And I think, you know, this is a fish I've got to really treat with some respect. Elizabeth, only a few feet away from her brother, dangles her feet in the water.
Always win. Always do.
Suddenly, something grabs hold of her leg. Dr. Robert B. Payne has worked as a physician for almost 40 years. But he has never seen wounds like this.
What have we here? My goodness.
The press report George's claim that what attacked his sister was 7 feet long, and that he believed it to be a garfish. In his medical report, Dr. Payne describes the wounds as being like coarse needles inserted in a board. A wave of paranoia soon follows, and the alligator gar is held accountable for many similar attacks. In an isolated backwater of Argentina, I'm investigating horrific reports of a creature that brutally severs human extremities. A man named Tilijo agrees to tell me exactly what happened to his nephew Gervasio on a day that neither of them would ever forget.
Cuando le pasó el caso ese, él venía de la escuela.
Vasio went swimming after school with some friends. The boys were from poor gaucho or cowboy families and owned only one set of clothes, so they went skinny dipping. Suddenly something bit him. The water turned red with blood. Something had severed through his penis and had removed part of a testicle.
It was a rapid strike which cut like shears across his genitals, but left them hanging from a flap of skin.
So what did this clearly had a very powerful bite, but possibly significant that it didn't cut clean through. Significant also that where this happened, it was the side of the water is where people go swimming, where animals go, so the water was cloudy, so nobody actually saw what it was that did this.
Gervasio survived the attack, but when I ask where I can find him, his uncle tells me that he's since died, but from an unrelated illness.